Charlas de la noche. Palabras con imagen. El análisis de los acontecimientos que influyen en nuestra vida con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
La voz más acreditada de la opinión editorial en México, en Charlas de la Noche, Palabras con Imagen. Y la puedes leer en www.siempre.mx.
Buenas noches, Frank. Un placer, como siempre, participar en charlas de esta noche.
¿Están los cárteles tras la silla presidencial? El asesinato de aspirantes a cargos de elección popular hace pensar que buscan el control político. El mensaje de los grupos delictivos es claro. Estas pueden ser las elecciones más sangrientas de la historia si no nos dejan imponer candidatos. Lo más preocupante es la inacción, silencio e indiferencia del gobierno. El presidente minimiza, evade y asegura que no hay ninguna cosa grave en seguridad. No es casual que la sucesión presidencial se esté llevando bajo fuego. Hay una estrategia. ¿Para beneficiar a quién? ¿Qué candidata o candidato puede salir ganando? Los cárteles podrían subir la mira, no solo buscar el control de pueblos y municipios, sino del Congreso. López Obrador quiere carro completo para dar continuidad a su proyecto político. Tanto en la derrota como en la victoria necesita que su partido se quede con el control del poder legislativo. Si Morena gana la presidencia, las cámaras serán decisivas para aprobar sus reformas. Si la pierde, serán la vía para hacer la vida imposible al próximo gobierno. Si en el 2021 los cárteles ayudaron a Morena a ganar gubernaturas, en el 2024 operarían para que gane la presidencia y el Congreso. El éxito de una narcoelección pondría definitivamente las instituciones mexicanas bajo el control del crimen. El reportaje del New York Times lleva a deducir que la delincuencia ayudaría por segunda vez a que un candidato de Morena llegue al poder. La delincuencia organizada estaría dispuesta a que Morena se quede sin la presidencia de la República. ¿Aceptaría perder los privilegios obtenidos con el obradorato? El tema no es casual, tiene que ver con una pregunta fundamental. ¿A quién quiere el narco en la presidencia?
Hasta aquí mi comentario. Buenas noches, Frank, y buenas noches a todos quienes nos escuchan en Estados Unidos, México y en otras partes del mundo. Soy Beatriz Pajés. Hasta la próxima.
Spent more time in courtrooms than perhaps any presidential candidate or former president in American history. Erin Moriarty explains how, in some ways, it's not just Donald Trump who's on trial. It's the very nature of our nation's judicial system.
On March 25th, inside room 1530 of this Manhattan courthouse, a trial unlike any other is scheduled to begin. A criminal trial of a former U.S. president, Donald J. Trump.
You know, we've never been in a situation like this where we've been faced with the prospect of holding a former leader to account.
What does that mean for the balance of power?
Melissa Murray teaches constitutional law at the New York University School of Law. Andrew Weissman teaches criminal procedure there.
Well, I do think that if you think about American history, there's sort of defining moments. There's the actual promulgation of the Constitution. There's the Civil War. And I think, I mean, without the hyperbole, I do think this is a defining moment in terms of having a criminal case.
To be clear, Donald Trump is no stranger to the legal system, and recent civil judgments may cost him nearly $500 million. But what makes this a defining moment, say Weissman and Murray, is that he is facing 91 criminal charges in 4 different courtrooms. In New York, in the so-called hush money case, Trump is accused of falsifying business records. In Washington, D.C. and Georgia, for allegedly conspiring to overturn the 2020 election, and in Florida for keeping classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago property. And what's at stake now for Donald Trump is not just his finances, but possibly his freedom.
The fact that we have these 4 indictments show that there is an appetite for accountability, but is he too much for the American legal system? I think that's what we're going to find out.
Because overshadowing this tangle of trials is the fact that defendant Trump is also candidate Trump.
I think the country is going to rue the day that we ever traveled down this road.
Robert Ray, a former federal prosecutor, successfully defended Trump when he first faced impeachment in late 2019.
What federal prosecutors want is they want the public to come to accept that the defendant was afforded fairness. I think that there's a good percentage of the country right now that doesn't believe that.
And that is why Professors Weissman and Murray put together what they say is an impartial guide to the Trump indictments.
There are facts that are disputed in 4 criminal cases, and our job is to translate that for people, hopefully, who really will understand that they need to get engaged.
They begin not with the New York case, but the one they believe levels the most serious charges, United States of America versus Donald Trump, being heard in Washington, D.C.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States.
Last August, Jack Smith, the special counsel appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland, charged Trump with conspiring with others to interfere with the results of the 2020 presidential election.
The sort of gist of it is that you have a plot to disrupt the counting of the votes.
Smith alleges Donald Trump knowingly made false statements about election results in states like Georgia, and according to court filings, cites as evidence Trump's own social media posts, like this one falsely accusing Democrats of stuffing ballot boxes. Smith also alleges the defendant lied to the Georgia Secretary of State to induce him to alter Georgia's vote count in that now famous telephone call on January 2nd, 2021.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
But former Trump attorney Robert Ray says a jury may hear that phone call differently.
Finding votes doesn't necessarily mean find me 11,000 fraudulent votes.
And adds that Donald Trump will argue he was exercising his right to free speech. Attorney Weissman counters.
I was a prosecutor for many years. There's no First Amendment protection in terms of a criminal case if you were to rob a bank and say, give me all your money. That's speech. None of that is protected.
My office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens.
But that speedy trial that was scheduled to begin in a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. tomorrow ran into a roadblock earlier this year after Trump's lawyers made a claim that echoed one made by another former president 50 years ago.
When the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. By definition. Exactly.
Donald Trump asserts he's protected from prosecution by presidential immunity. While that claim was initially thrown out by a federal appeals court, Trump asked the Supreme Court to weigh in. And in a win for Trump, just this past week, the justices agreed to hear arguments on the case in April.
So even a case that's built for speed can be derailed by delays.
Yes.
Doesn't that kind of reflect one of the limitations of the American system, these delays?
Donald Trump once wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. This is the art of delay, and he's played it very well.
There's no question that it is desirable politically for Donald Trump to delay these cases until after the election, for obvious reasons. He's entitled to take that position.
It's a strategy that presidential historian Douglas Brinkley says that Trump learned from controversial attorney Roy Cohn, chief counsel to Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s, and who represented the Trump Organization in the 1970s.
What Trump has going for him is that he learned how to stall and defer and postpone, kick the can. But more than that, he learned never admit defeat.
But as much as they have tried, Donald Trump's lawyers have not been able to delay or dismiss this case, the people of the state of New York against Donald Trump.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime.
Last year, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg alleged that Donald Trump had falsified records to conceal a bigger crime, election fraud.
The defendant claimed that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. This simply was not true.
Instead, Bragg says the hush money went to pay Stephanie Clifford, an adult film star better known as Stormy Daniels, to buy her silence about an alleged affair with Trump before the 2016 election. While some legal observers question the strength of the case, Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, was convicted of similar charges in 2018 and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Jurors chosen for Trump's trial will likely remain anonymous, and no cameras will be allowed inside the courtroom. What's more, unlike his previous civil trials, Donald Trump will be required to be in here instead of on the campaign trail.
This is about defending his rights, him showing up in court and being able to mount a vigorous defense to the charges against him. That's his right as a defendant.
That won't keep him from holding court outside, as he did after a recent hearing.
Nobody's ever seen anything like it in this country. It's a disgrace.
Is he going to try to use this case as part of his campaign message?
Of course he will. He has done that with regard to every other stage of these prosecutions. Why would the trial be any different?
Manhattan DA Bragg has already asked the judge to rein Trump in with a partial gag order. But Ray blames the prosecutors for taking a candidate to trial just months before a presidential election.
Are you saying that former leaders should never, when they're running for re-election, ever be held accountable for alleged crimes?
No, but I'm saying that the unusual circumstance that we find ourselves in is that we've got 4 pending indictments in an election cycle. That is a result that I think most people would agree is undesirable.
But Bob, he gets to bring in his evidence, he gets to cross-examine witnesses, and he could be acquitted, and that would help him in an election year.
I think there are questions about whether or not Donald Trump can get a fair trial in the District of Columbia, as there are whether or not he can get a fair trial in Manhattan, given the potential juries.
I've watched them deliberate. They take it very seriously.
But Professor Murray is confident that juries made up of American citizens are more than up to the task.
I think very few jurors go into there like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and I think they go in there like, I'm a juror, and I'm an American, and this is my civic duty.
Hola amigos, bienvenidos una vez más a Charlas de la Noche, Palabras con Imagen. Bueno, es de esperarse, como dice la señora Pajés, gran periodista, y en la revista siempre se ve una gran editorial respecto a la narcoviolencia y a la influencia, valga la que rima, con la anuencia del narcopresidente para que estas elecciones se vean manchadas y manipuladas por los carteles de la droga, y ni el INE, ni el ejército, nadie está haciendo nada, todos están de brazos cruzados. Por eso, la única solución somos los ciudadanos, con nuestra credencial de elector, el 2 de junio, abarrotar las casillas en el territorio nacional, en consulados, todos los lugares donde se pueda ir a votar hay que hacerlo. Y no muy lejos, solo cruzando la frontera, tenemos el ejemplo de un Donald Trump que hace su campaña desde los tribunales, o sea, atendiendo más de 6 juicios en corte y simultáneamente ganando primarias. Ya ganó en Missouri, ahora el Super Tuesday, como le llaman, y este término nació por un periodista inglés, el Supermartes. ¿Por qué le llaman Supermartes? Bueno, la principal razón es que ahí ya se define quién es el candidato oficial del partido. Entonces, tanto demócratas como republicanos están ya haciendo todo lo posible, principalmente Joe Biden, que no quiere pasar a la historia como su antecesor Jimmy Carter, presidente de un cuatrienio solamente. Lo mismo le pasa a Donald Trump, pero él quiere regresar a como de lugar a la Casa Blanca. Y George Bush padre también estuvo solamente. Entonces, allí está la medición de fuerzas y especialmente de que la gente debe de decidir cuál es el mejor candidato. En Estados Unidos, por alguna razón, nadie permite que haya un tercer partido y es lo que muchos americanos claman, porque demócratas y republicanos llevan una alternancia que no a todos gusta. En México, a diferencia, hay partidos satélites. Y bueno, ahora han hecho encuestas y Eduardo Verástegui sigue a la cabeza como una preferencia muy querida para la elección en México. Pero eso solamente sería posible si todos los mexicanos coercionamos nuestro voto y no dejamos que la influencia oficialista nos arrebate todo. Y digo nos arrebate porque es lo que están haciendo. Vean cómo están pagando dinero a raudales por todas partes. Me llegan miles de videos de todos los actos de corrupción. Pero no quiero caer en repetir el jueguito y que la gente se ría como si fuera un meme. No, aquí informamos y ayudamos a edificar una opinión sana. Y esa es la conciencia del voto. Buenas noches, buenos días, nos vemos y nos escuchamos mañana con un especial de lo que le están haciendo a Carlos Loret de Mola, que es el colmo. Pero gracias a Dios, toda la prensa internacional nos hemos unido también a defender su palabra. Gracias, Dios los bendiga.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Escuchaste el análisis de la noticia, transparente como el agua, con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.